Hello and welcome to the newest Jump King episode number 11, 55 falls this time around. I have recently buffed up the gain of my settings yet again, so probably it's a bit louder. I don't know for sure, but that might be the case. You can maybe hear me doing some clicking just now, because yeah, that's how things be, right? In any case, I'm going to get started now. I did some practice, but it was a mixed bag, I would say. Let's see. So first, I want to begin by talking about my end of the year video for a sec, which came out just yesterday, based on when I'm recording this. And I must say, I'm very happy with it overall. But I do feel like there was a lot that I learned. So it was kind of a combination of things, right? On the one hand, I feel like the whole process of making it was very instructive. It took me a long time. It took me longer than I expected to gather some parts of the clips, finding the correct episodes to grab clips from, these kind of things. For the TV section, the movie section, these kinds of things. I also thought that it was a little bit harder to script how I wanted to, because I wanted to avoid too many spoilers. And that whole practice, the practice of avoiding spoilers, is something that I personally don't really love. Like I'm generally more pro spoiler than against spoiler, but I knew that it's kind of a bad idea to get into the nitty gritty of films and TV and so on without really giving people fair warnings. So I just tried to avoid it as much as possible. And in doing so, I saw just like how hard it is to write without sounding too fluffy and just being like, yeah, it was amazing. At the same time, with the top 5, top 10, these kind of things, ultimately that's basically what you're doing. You're just like, yeah, it was fucking cool. So with that in mind, I don't know. I feel like it was probably done just fine in the end. There are some things that I'm going to change in the future, though. Like I realize that I need to work a bit more on how I breathe during these videos because of the positioning of my microphone and these kind of things. In the past, when I've done these kind of videos, I had a much stronger noise gate, and I brought it back this time for Jump King, because I want to get it into a level that is adequate for the whole process, right? I want to kind of eventually reach a state where basically, sorry, my slippers are in the wrong spot. I'm putting them back on. I want the levels to basically be where I feel like they should be in relation to other YouTube videos. And currently, not quite there. It's still a bit too quiet. Part of that is because I'm a more quiet person, and part of it is just audio settings, the real enemy. So hopefully I'll be able to eventually fix that and do a bit of a better job, right? I also noticed some of my transitions, and I actually knew this at the end, right? That the space between some of the clips was a bit too large. But I decided to keep it kind of as it was because I had already had kind of a major time ramp up occur as I was trying to fix other problems in the process, right? And I also thought to myself, like, okay, I could either improve the video marginally by spending another couple hours on these transitions, or I could get working on other ideas. I could kind of give myself some time to learn a bit of new things that could help me in future videos. And so that's what I did. I've actually been looking at all kinds of cool new effects that I'm hoping to employ in my next video. I've been looking at different kinds of transitions. I've been learning a lot of little stuff. Don't know what happened there. I think I was maybe just standing in the wrong spot, because that is a max jump actually. We're doing really good right now. 4 falls, and we're in the Great Frontier. It looks good for getting into the whole windswept bluffs area. I think that's what it's called. We haven't been there enough times for me to really remember. In any case, I will hopefully cut those transitions down a bit more too. And I think that will help to make the videos more engaging. On the one hand, I think I do have kind of a more chill style as a person, so I'm not going to be, really meeting the level of some of these YouTubers who are going just, tic-tac-sook, going very fast all the time, and rattling off things loud and proud. But some of that is just editing magic, right? Some of it is performance, which I'm very used to. I'm already used to performing much differently in different circumstances through working. Ooh, first try. Let's go. Am I good at this game now? I don't think so, but am I good at this game now? Oh man. I think they say pride cometh before the fall. I'm pretty sure that was a famous quote from the great philosopher Aaron Burr or something like that. In any case, that was just too strong. The ability to cut this in a way that really pushes it, makes it more percussive, I think will be stronger in the future, right? And of course, my Jump King videos are not going to be like that. They have very minimal editing. Essentially, we edit when I'm drinking water, when I'm coughing, or sneezing, or just go or something for 10 minutes. And so we miss those kind of moments. But on the whole, I think in video essays, in other kinds of videos that I make, I did it again, so I should actually be a little bit more careful in that spot in the future. We'll try and be more careful there. Yeah. There's one other thing that I'm going to change in future videos, and that's the glare. It's kind of just a little unfortunate. I had thought about getting 2 pairs of glasses, one that would not have glare from blue light, and one that would. But they found out that my prescriptions are so high that I would need to get very, very much heavier kind of glasses for that. And so I decided not to do that. But the truth is, I do so many digital meetings for my work. I do so much recording with this and with my job that I actually probably should have them, if not only just as a kind of backup. So I'm thinking about whether or not I might go get those anyway, even though it will be, very much an extra expense. But that might be one kind of solution. Another more obvious one is to just change the display when I'm recording something that involves me, looking at a script, or even just in some cases I just had a window open, and I could just turn off the display then. And I didn't really realize how much of a problem that was until I would say about halfway through the video. And I was like, I look very tired in the video, and that's because I just had a very tiring kind of week. But I also have just this huge amount of glare, and it's all because of the setup, basically. And it's something that I can definitely reduce. So that'll be another thing that I improve in the next one. And I think that should be the journey of a YouTube channel anyway, is you get to see me get better. Eventually, I might even be good at this. That will be scary. But maybe I'll beat Jump King before then. That might be a cope. So we're back in Windswept Bluffs, and it took us 12 falls. That is phenomenal, because that means we have basically all of these falls, all 43 remaining falls, are for this zone, which is which would be great because I think we'll need them. Now here we need to take things very carefully, and I think this is a good time for me to also think about some questions that popped into the last video. These come from our only real questioner so far, and hopefully there will be other questions to come someday. From Yulia, our commenter. And the question was, what is the most recent book I read for pleasure, and what did I like, what did I dislike about it? And that was scary. the one that I read most recently for pleasure was Sanderson's Wind and Truth. It is the final Stormlight Archive book. I talk about it in the end of the year video, but I didn't really give it like much of a review, I don't think. So we can't do max on that one. That's what we're learning. No, that was too much. I don't know what that was. That was just one of those second falls, right? But I don't think I really talked about what I liked and disliked about it. So I'll try to do that now. So I'm going to start with dislikes because I think that's kind of my preferred method of approach when it comes to criticism, is like, say the bad, then say the good. Leave people on a good note. So the bad things are there's quite a few things that are like problems, I would say, that I view as like mostly minor in some cases, but for other readers they might be bigger problems. And I think the fandom of the whole series has been very much divided on this topic. If you haven't read the book and you are interested in dealing with it, I will say, like, spoilers incoming. And apparently falls incoming too. So I'll try to give you a Wind and Truth chapter when I've finished talking about this, for those of you who do actually intend to read that book, because I know maybe at least one of you might out there. So when it comes to the bad things about Wind and Truth, I think the first kind of problem is a certain tendency to how do I say this? To chase an idea too much in a way. So one of the major kind of character arcs is Kaladin's. Kaladin is the first primary character of the Stormlight Archives. He's the main character of The Way of Kings. And he is many people's favorite character in the series, or favorite character in books of all time and things like this. And part of it is because his struggle is fairly relatable. A lot of people have struggled with depression, and Kaladin's portrayal of depression is considered to be very accurate. It draws a lot from Sanderson's wife, who does struggle from depression. So a lot of how his character works is kind of filtered through his understanding, and also from his wife's feedback on that. So there's a very real creative attachment, I guess you could say. I thought we were gonna get to use 4D falls in that area up there. It's not going to be that way today. And Kaladin's arc in Wind and Truth is that he has become, due to the events of the prior book, essentially the first kind of groundbreaking psychotherapist. He has realized that there is a way to deal with things like post-traumatic stress disorder, to deal with depression, that comes through like group therapy, basically. Being able to actually discuss your problems and have kind of emotional growth that's able to emerge, new patterns to form, different ways to rework traumas you've experienced, and these kind of things. And that's kind of a conclusion he reaches in Rhythm of War, and it's a very natural conclusion. It doesn't feel forced at all, and it's very well developed. He doesn't call himself a therapist or anything like this because this is a new concept. It doesn't really exist. Now, at the beginning of Wind and Truth, Kaladin has already been told at the end of the prior book that he's going to travel with Seth, the assassin in white, who is very mentally ill, to say the least. And I kind of laugh because I think that's understating it a lot. Seth is probably it's really difficult to describe, but he basically suffers hugely traumatic events in his childhood, and he also has this kind of moment where he believes that the world is coming to an end. And in his culture, in his religion, there's like a very specific response that people are supposed to have. And Seth has this response, and his culture disagrees with him, and they punish him, and they call him a liar. They send him into exile. They give him a kind of sacred stone that is used to command him, to control basically all of his decisions for the rest of his life, and he becomes essentially bound to whoever holds this stone. And it is through this oath stone, as it's called, that he ends up becoming this so-called assassin in white, because he was a prodigious warrior, and he is carrying an extremely powerful artifact. He is essentially just a weapon for people who hold his stone, and he falls into very bad hands, or very good hands, depending on who you ask. And he ends up kind of going on a murderous rampage, and the whole time he essentially is able to disassociate himself from his actions because he's doing them because of the oath stone, which he believes has a kind of sacred, magical, religious, spiritual effect. Like it's sort of like a God-given thing. We're at 30 falls, so we've still got 25 here. And it is through his relation to this object that he's able to kind of remain sane, because he's like, oh, well, all of these horrible things I'm doing, they aren't really what I'm doing. They're actually what my master has kind of ordered me to do. I do not have the freedom to do anything different. That's just who I am, and I am a bad person. I'm a liar. I'm a criminal, and this is actually my punishment. Essentially, like, it's my punishment to do these horrible things that make me feel guilty or bad, and I get to feel less guilty or bad about them because really they weren't my choices at all. And already by the end of Way of Kings, I believe, we know that Seth essentially learns that this is not true. He learns that his religion related to the Oath Stone is not really valid from his own perspective. He is given the revelation that he could have actually chosen to disobey it, that it was not actually controlling him in any meaningful way. And then it becomes merely a matter of his honor, right? He followed it purely because of his honor. And this is really a baffling predicament. It sounds of course, like you could just say, well, I mean, sure, being honorable is a thing, but like, in the real world, honor has its limits. We would probably not start killing a bunch of people just to fulfill some kind of promise we made. But in the world of the Stormlight Archives on Rashar, honor is actually their god. So their god is literally a symbol of honor. So for those people, and by the way, their god is real. So it's not a case of well, it's something you could just choose to not believe in. It's a real manifestation of reality that uh, Seth himself is also he's actually touched the tools of God, so he knows that God is real in his world, and so it really begs the question then of well, could he really have done anything different even once he learns that this oath stone business is not really it. So he's all torn up from this trauma, and Kaladin is sent along with Seth, and he's basically like, oh yeah, maybe you can help Seth out too with his problems. But really, Kaladin, your job is to talk to, I guess the equivalent would be like an archangel in terms of like Christian lore. Like, go talk to an archangel and make that archangel realize that it's crazy, that it's deranged, and try to help that being to gain their sanity back. And Kaladin doesn't want to fight anymore, and he sees this as an acceptable kind of out from the war. He can go try to help Seth. He can try to help the Herald Ishar, this kind of archangel like figure, and maybe that will make a big difference. And something that really grades a lot of the community's gears, I guess, or grinds their gears, is that Wit, one of the characters who has a bit more knowledge of other worlds and these kind of things in the universe of the Cosmere, he's like, "Oh, you're a therapist, Paladin. You're inventing therapy. It's marvelous to watch," kind of something like that. And Kaladin just kind of goes with it, and he's like, "Well, if Wit says that it's true, then I guess that's what I do. Like, I'm a therapist now." Um, and I have no real problem with that in concept. Someone tells you, "Oh, the thing that you're doing is called this," and you go, "Yeah, that's what I am." It makes sense. But I find the practices of Kaladin as a kind of proto therapist to just be very questionable. He part of it is certainly his failing as a character. He views himself and he views others as having kind of the same struggles as he does. So 44. So rather than kind of deal with these two characters, Seth and Ishar, in a way that acknowledges the uniqueness of their conditions, he really glosses over them, and he doesn't realize until like 2/3, maybe 3/4 through the story, that all of his attempts are not really working with regard to either Seth or Ishar, because he thinks that they are like him, and they actually aren't. And on the one hand, this is fairly realistic, right? People often make judgments where they assume that their own situations are the same as others, and so on. But at the same time, it feels quite weak, because the manner of how he kind of attempts to help others doesn't really match up to his own experiences either. Water break. And we're back. So Seth doesn't really do what Kaladin even went through. So Kaladin has Seth basically tell him his life story. And this is really awesome as a framing device. It's really useful for us as readers to get into why Seth is the way he is. And I would argue it's definitely one of the hugest strengths of this whole book. But on the other hand, um, this approach just seems very uh, convenient, and there's not really any justification for it. Because the way that Kaladin has typically worked with others in the past is through a combination um, of talking about specific traumatic events that relate to, for instance, war, and typically involve people who have these traumas that they refer to as a kind of battle shock or something like this, which is, of course, a reference to shell shock, the earlier kind of World War One name for PTSD. We're at 51 falls, and I haven't even finished talking about just one weakness of this text. Oh no, 52. So that's one example, I guess you could say, is that this character arc has some stuff that for me just doesn't quite fit right. I'm gonna talk about one strength with my next two falls, and I guess the question about cheeses will come next time. One more fall to go. I'm gonna, keep playing until I appear to be falling, and then I'm gonna quit, so that I can talk about one positive thing. So one thing I really absolutely loved was Adolin's arc in this book. Adolin is one of my favorite characters. He is best boy. He's a nice, supportive, kind-hearted person, and his problems involve being unable to live up to who his father is, hating his father, these kind of problems, and he also is essentially the most normal person in the story, who's given as much screen time, so to speak, or given as much perspective. And Adolin goes into the worst situation out of any of the characters, and you know that from the very beginning of the book, and you go, "Oh, he's dead." Is basically how you start off, and you think, well, I know that Sanderson typically kills off characters in the last book, and this is the last book of Arc One of the Stormlight Archive, so you kind of maybe make your peace with it on a meta level. You're like, Adolin is going down, and it's going to be rough, and I'm not going to say whether he goes down or not, but I do want to say that I think his going into an impossible situation and making the best of it, and doing everything you can to stop it from ruining everything. Being the linchpin, being someone who's really key in a difficult and stressful situation, and going there knowing that it is the most difficult, and thriving really even while things are falling apart. I think that's super cool story, and I think the way that it handles uh, Adolin, the way it handles his loss of one of his legs, pretty much near the 2/3 mark, I would say, maybe the 3/4 mark of this book. It shows you how this character is literally giving up, and not an arm but a leg at least, for this cause, trying to keep other people alive, essentially. And it's just really fun. Like it alternates between these really cool action scenes that I think are much much stronger than some of the action scenes we see in other books. I think like in a movie, all of the fighting in the Adolin thing, and there's plenty of it. It's kind of consistent. I think that will be just really cool to watch if it ever happens on the big screen. We'll see. But the moments of peace that are kind of built in to this conflict of the siege, essentially, those are also really cool. The way that kind of a natural friendship forms between Adolin and several newer characters, several older characters who are all kind of trapped in this situation together is just chef's kiss. So I've said one good and bad thing. And that's 55 falls. 55 for sure. I didn't fall another time. Thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoyed this video.